Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome. We have my guest Esther here today, who is my mentor as well as an amazing person. So I'm going to have her introduce herself, and thank you so much for coming, Esther, and joining the conversation today.
Yes, thank you, Karen. I am honored to be here with you today and to chat with you. And a little bit about myself. I am a marketing strategist and business coach for multi-passionate Christian women who are growing a business online. I am also a wife of almost 20 years, and I have a daughter, and I live in Maine. And so that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Oh, I love it. Well, what I love is, I want to talk about where we started just very briefly before this is
Yeah.
about the recent retreat that you led, because
Mhm.
first of all, there's so much that you're doing for women, and I feel like it is unique. So I would love to, well, first of all, okay, so I'm hopping around here, but I want to know why you started your business, and then talk a little bit about how the retreat helped to integrate into that vision.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. So I'll have to go back in time to talk about
I
how I
know that's a
started my
lot.
business. Oh, how I started my business was really a point of desperation, to be honest. I had worked full time and then part time in my career, which was social work. And throughout that career, I had realized I needed to, earn a little extra money on the side because social work is not exactly one of the most highly paid careers. And so I had gotten into network marketing and direct sales. And that was what really sparked the entrepreneurial bug in me. And but I got to a point with that career that I got burned out. I was tired of chasing my friends and family down and trying to get them to buy products and do some of those things, which even though they were great products, it was getting a little old for me. And I wasn't using my gifts and my strengths and my skills.
Mm.
I was doing a lot of things that were outside of my natural gifting. And so I decided to start blogging. And I thought, I'm going to make a lot of money with a blog. And I'm just going to, do the thing that they say that you can do, work from home and make a lot of money. And I did that for about a year and a half. And I realized, oh, I haven't really made that much money yet. And so then really started my business when I started actually providing a service for people that they wanted and were willing to pay for. And so that started in 2017, and I just sort of pivoted and up leveled what I was offering to my clients over the years until I got to the point where I really was ready to help others do what I had done. I had created a really solid business for myself and helped pay for things that my family needed. And I had this audience of women who were listening to my passion project podcast, and they were starting to ask about how they could do that and how they could have an online business and things like that. So that's when I started doing more of the coaching and the teaching and having courses. And so the retreat is really kind of this, I feel like it's a culmination of all these past years of experience just coming together and being able to bring women together, which is something I've always loved doing. At my church, I've been involved in a lot of our women's retreats and women's small groups that I've led over the years. So I've always loved bringing women together, creating connection, creating a space where they could really truly grow and thrive. And so I think the retreat for me was this place where I could bring together the community that I'd created related to business and also use some of those past experiences from my other parts of my life and hopefully create a really transformational experience for the women in my group. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I feel like, and as I mentioned to you before, just the idea, well, not the idea, just the retreat made such a difference.
Mm,
And obviously, I'm in your program, UpLift, which
yeah.
has been a game changer for me and my business and just simply feeling more connected.
Yeah.
So I know community is really important to you as well.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's something you recently started a course on, as well
Hmm.
as some other things. So I'd love to hear your perspective on the importance of community.
Okay. Oh goodness. I mean, that it feels like it's something that I've had to learn the hard way. because for a long time, I tried to do a lot of things on my own. I am a very independent person. I'm a very particular person. I have a certain way of doing things. And so for a long time, I think I really tried to like do the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do things on your own. And in particular, I think about when I was a new mom and I was struggling in my marriage and I had a lot of things going on in my life that I was just feeling very alone in. Even
Mm,
though I had friends and other people around me, I felt like no one understood where I was at and I felt like nobody could relate to me because my husband was on staff at the church. And so I felt like I couldn't talk about our marriage challenges because he was on staff. And then I had this baby that I couldn't figure out what to do with. And she cried all the time. And I felt just alone. And I think over the next couple of years, I thankfully was able to lean into the community that I had around me of some friends, some really good friends and some groups, like I said, at church, some of the small groups. And those experiences really transformed my life and allowed me to have the support that I needed during those hard seasons and get the help that I needed and recognize that I actually wasn't alone and that that was kind of just a lie I was believing.
mm,
And so for me, I have seen that community has transformed my life and the value of relationships, the value of being vulnerable with people. I think that's really something that I learned during that season too, was how when you're vulnerable with somebody, that opens up them to be vulnerable with you. And that's really how you have healing and transformation is when you truly share what you're dealing with and what you're going through. So all of that I think has led me to a place where I feel really passionate about creating community, creating safe places for people to share and connect and having that be a big part of how I run my business too.
mm. Well, you do it so beautifully and attract such amazing people too.
Mm,
Let's go back to your personally a little bit. When
okay.
you were talking, we're thinking more about your business connected to your
Mhm.
confidence.
Yeah.
Now, and you've always been very open. Would you say that number one, is it something that you had always thought of? I mean, you said that you did the network marketing and that's really what got the bug in you to be
Mhm.
entrepreneurial. But when you were younger, did you think, oh, I'd love to own a business someday?
Oh my goodness. No, I never thought I would own a business. I was the most shy, insecure child you would ever meet. I didn't have I think I had dreams of like becoming a doctor or a lawyer because those were the things that everybody said, what you were supposed to say. And I was a pretty good arguer. I think my mom would agree that I was good at arguing. So I did kind of say maybe I'll be a lawyer. But I never had a dream of being a business owner, and I was very shy and didn't speak up and was afraid of speaking in front of people. So all the stuff I'm doing now, I never would have pictured myself doing when I was younger.
Oh my gosh, that's proof that we can all transform, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Well, and thinking about confidence, I'm curious to know when, if there was a particular moment or if it just happened over time, but specifically where you felt like, wow, I am really good at this.
Oh, wow. I think it's been a very gradual transition for me. And
Mm.
I think there's been times when I have recognized I'm good at something, like one thing, but I've not necessarily believed like fully, like not had full confidence in myself. And then it's just been a gradual one step and then another action step and then more confidence building over time. I'm trying to think of if there's a good example of something that when I recognize, I think probably one of the first experiences I had in my business was when one of my clients said to me like, Esther, you you know what you're doing, like you need to be charging more, you need to be like basically she was the one who told me I need to up level what I'm offering, even though it actually meant she was going to be paying more for my services at the time. And so that was probably one of the times where I had like, oh wow, I actually do know what I'm doing. Like I'm not just pretending, I'm not just playing. Someone values what I have to offer and what I can do. And that started me down the path in my business role of having and building that confidence.
Wow. Well, I'd love for you to share more about UpLift too,
Mm,
because I think you said that last year was when you started it,
yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
so I'm wondering how you transitioned to decide to do that and how that has also just solidified how good you are at what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, that transition was hard. It was really hard to go from, because really what I had started in 2017 and continued until the beginning of 2021 was being a service provider, which was really me doing things on the backside of people's businesses, or even sometimes helping them with their marketing, but it was implementing behind the scenes. It wasn't me being out there front and center and saying, I know what I'm doing, I can help someone else. I wasn't coaching. And so when I decided to put myself out there and start UpLift, I was needing to make this mental shift of, I'm not going to be actually doing the things in someone's business. I'm going to be more guiding them and encouraging them and teaching them how to do that for themselves, or how to have their team do it, or things like that. And so there was definitely like this decision point that I had to make. And I had to say to myself, I believe I can truly do this. I believe I can help others. And I have enough credibility that I can put myself out there as really kind of saying I'm an expert in this field. And that was, to be honest, that was really scary to do. I
Mm.
didn't want to do it. I was trying to come up with a lot of reasons why it was not a good idea. And it was actually, again, a similar conversation with the same person that I told you about before that had instilled that confidence in me in the very beginning. She was actually one of the ones who said to me, like, Esther, you already are a coach. You already know how to do this. You just need to put yourself out there and claim it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it was that step of saying, okay, I'm going to start something and I'm just going to see where it goes. And that's what got it started. That's
That's so
yeah,
great. And now
yeah,
it's thriving.
yeah,
Well, since most people probably listening to this might not, well, I shouldn't say most, but some people might not know, what are you talking about? What is
yeah.
UpLift and what did you, so could you tell us about UpLift and then a little bit about the transition? Why is it different? How is it
Okay.
different from what you were doing?
Yeah, yeah. So UpLift is essentially a mastermind and group coaching program for women who are building an online business. And it provides them with some marketing strategy from me. It provides them with a community of like minded women. And it provides them with some ongoing training, again, from me or from guest experts that we have. Like recently, we had Karen as our guest expert. So you were the one providing the expert training, which was amazing. And so it's this ongoing program to help women grow their online business. And so the way it's different from what I was doing before, again, before I had really been doing uh, implementation and strategy for business owners, but it was behind the scenes. I wasn't the one leading. I wasn't the one uh, providing basically the consulting for them. I was doing a little bit of that near the end, but I was still doing a lot of the actual tech implementation. I was still creating the Facebook ads or creating the graphics or running the podcast episodes, things like that. And so with UpLift, I took the step to say, okay, I'm no longer going to be the one actually implementing these strategies in your business, but now I'm going to be teaching and coaching and guiding you through it. And really, I think too, the reason I created the program is because I saw a need in the marketplace. There are similar programs, but not with the faith-based element that I included in mine.
Mm.
And I had wanted something like this when I was struggling with figuring out what I was doing and how to really grow it. And so I created what I saw that there was a need for. And so, yeah, that's kind of the process of how I landed there.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
Well, think about that woman that is not so confident. And I'm curious what advice you would give to her feeling like she's doubting herself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can definitely relate to that because as I said, I growing up was very shy, very insecure. Didn't think that my voice mattered. I have a specific memory of being in my yard and I was like preaching sermons in my head. I had a lot of ideas. I had a lot of
Mhm.
thoughts, but I wouldn't say them out loud, right? And so um for the woman who is struggling with that confidence, I think the way that I have gotten to the point where I feel confident now and I have things to say and I'm not afraid to say them is it was literally one baby step at a time for me. It was one baby step and then recognizing, oh, I shared my idea and I didn't die. Or, I got up and spoke in front of a crowd of people and I didn't pass out. That's a win. It was a lot of small steps. I mean, in eighth grade, I had to get up and speak in front of a crowd of people at my eighth grade graduation, 2 months after my dad had died in a sudden car accident.
My
And
God.
that was like, I still, when I think about that moment, I'm like, how did I do that? I think I was shaking the entire time, but like I got through it. And then I gave my speech at my high school graduation. And then in college, I started leading groups and so it was just like one thing after another. When I got into direct sales, and then I was learning how to give presentations and stand up in front of a group of people and sell them something, which again, I never dreamed of doing when I was younger. But it was one thing after another of just taking that step and often probably doing it messy and doing it wrong, but still doing it. And that is part of what has built my confidence over the years and helped me to recognize that I can do this and I can share my thoughts and I can uh I can make an impact too when I'm doing that. I can truly help people more by speaking up instead of staying quiet.
Wow. That's so inspirational. And it's so true that we are, and there's nobody going to be like anybody. I mean, in other words,
Yeah.
we are all unique. And it is so important for people to share their
Yeah.
opinions and share their voice.
Mhm.
Well, you brushed over something that I know it wasn't part of the story of the answer, but you had a tragic loss as a
Mhm.
child.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to talk about that at all and how that affected you and your confidence and just your
Mhm.
overall journey in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, it's something I've shared about a lot because again, I think part of probably what did set me on the path of learning to share things is that tragic accident that happened. And so I was 13 when it happened. My dad was a very adventurous person, and he always had some fun idea that we were going to do as a family. And one day we were together, my dad, my sister, and I, and four of my friends, and we were all in our Jeep and we were driving on one of the back roads in Maine. And he allowed my two of my friends to take turns driving the Jeep. And unfortunately, one of them, when he was driving, lost control of the vehicle, and my dad was standing on the back of the Jeep holding onto the roll bars, and he fell off and hit his head. And when he did, that impact essentially killed him. He was alive for he we got him to the hospital and he was alive until the next day. But he was brain dead from the impact of the fall. And so clearly that loss changed my life forever. It forced me to reckon with a lot of things in life, my faith, what I believed about God, about humanity. There was a lot of forgiveness that had to happen. I wasn't angry with my friend who was driving. I never have believed it was his fault because he was 13, like he shouldn't have been driving.
Right.
um, but there was also a lot of forgiveness that had to happen with my dad because there was also a lot of things in my childhood prior to that weren't great and that I never got to resolve with him. So all of that, I think ultimately I had to experience something that a lot of people don't even experience when they're adults, like a loss of a very close person in your life.
Right.
And I think it really forced me to kind of grow up really quickly. I was the older daughter, so I had to kind of step up and help my mom a lot and put up with my younger sister and just get through high school. Like I had to get through high school without my dad, and being and helping my mom, who was working full time, trying to make it work for us, and really never in a great financial position as a family. And so all of that, I think, really shifted my perspective on life, to know that life is short, for one thing. uh and I think I really learned to pursue what I believed in, and what I how I wanted my life to look. I think I've often wrestled with, what if that was to happen to me? What would people say about me when I'm gone? What would people say about, my family, the impact that I made? I've thought about that a lot more than maybe the average person thinks about,
Yeah.
because,
Right.
my dad was gone, and now it's whatever memories I have of him from his 38 years. That's it. Like that's his legacy, and unfortunately not all of it is good. And so I, yeah, I think it's just a situation that I never would wish on anybody else to ever have that experience. But I am grateful for what it taught me. I'm grateful for how it pushed me to really wrestle with a lot of the things that I probably wouldn't have otherwise, and step out and believe in the things that I really believe in, and pursue them wholeheartedly.
Mm, that's beautiful. Well, thank you, by the way, for sharing. And I'm so
Yeah.
sorry about that. It
Yeah.
is really tragic. And you and I both went to the Donald Miller Write Your Story
Hmm.
workshop, and
Hmm.
you wrote a beautiful piece on that.
Yeah.
And I think about how he asked, I don't know if it was a formal study or if he just asked people informally, but about the idea of, if you could, would you remove the most tragic event from your life?
Yeah.
And based on what you're saying, it sounds like, well, I don't want to answer for you. Let's have you answer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that's a rough one. That's a rough one, Karen. I mean, I think I would say I would have liked it to have gone differently.
Yes.
I
Oh,
definitely would have liked to have it gone differently. In fact, after it happened, I think I many times said, why didn't there was like six of us in the vehicle? Couldn't all of us have just gotten hurt a little bit instead of somebody dying? Like, wouldn't that make more sense? Um,
yeah.
so, but yeah, I think that there's always something to be learned from anything that we experience, and it's definitely impacted the person I've become. So in that sense, I wouldn't change it. In the selfish sense, I would change it, because I would like to still have my dad,
Of course. I know that's a
um
perfect question to ask you.
but no, it's something I've thought about. Like, would I change it? If I could, I would have to be honest and say probably I would. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I know that there were other factors at play, and ultimately he made a choice, and that choice impacted all of us.
Mhm.
It wasn't an intentional choice, but it was still a choice. So
Yeah.
um yeah, but it's taught me to be grateful for the moments that I have,
Mm.
and to one thing I will never forget about my dad was that he lived life to the fullest. And so he embraced the moment, he embraced the adventure, and that is something that I try to do as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Are you more of a spontaneous person or more of a planned person?
I am more of a planner, which I definitely do more planning, but I still have that adventurous spirit in me.
Yeah.
So I will do spontaneous things as long as it doesn't mess up my plans too much. um, like on the weekends, my husband and I always have this argument, because he likes to stay home and I like to go do things. And I'm like, Saturday morning, let's get up and let's go do something. Let's embrace the weekend and do something fun. I am definitely more of the adventurous one in that sense.
Okay, I love it.
So, yeah.
Great. Well, you did a recent reel about when people don't buy your services, the reason for that. Could you
Yeah.
speak to that a little bit, which I think is awesome?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it came out of a conversation with a client because we were talking about her business and how she wished she had more clients. And so she's been being more active, on social media. And I said, okay, so how much are you talking about what you do and how people can work with you on your social media? And she was like, like not so much. So my reel was basically like, if you want people to work with you, if you want people to buy what you have to offer, you have to talk about it. You have to put yourself out there. And so that was the context of it. Just that we can't be afraid to actually tell people what they can buy from us or what we have to offer, whether it's in a meeting or in your business or however it is. If you're not actually speaking up and telling people, hey, this is what you can get or what I can do for you, then they're not going to just be like, hey, I want that thing because I don't even know you have it. So that's so I think it's important to speak up and share what you have to offer.
Yeah, I loved that so much because, as you know, so much the work that I do with women is about communication and asking for what you need and want.
Yeah.
And I do think it's fascinating how many times I still feel like, how many times do you say it? Because you feel like a broken record. So,
Mhm.
what is your rule of thumb for those listening that are in business here of how often do you talk about your offer?
Oh, that's a good one. So when it's social media, my general rule of thumb is more like the 80/20 rule, or maybe 70/30. So 80% or 70% giving value, giving free content that's going to help someone, that's going to inspire them, that's going to teach them something, things like that. But then 20 to 30% of the time is probably going to be needing to talk about what you have to offer and basically selling something or telling people, hey, sign up for this or come to my workshop or get my free thing. If you do that all the time, every single post, people are going to kind of get sick of that and they're not going to enjoy following you.
Yeah.
But if you never say it, then they're not going to know what you can do other than entertain them on social media. So that's my kind of rule of thumb. I don't know how closely I actually implement that or follow it, but I think that's my guideline for the most part.
Yeah. I remember one of my first coaches said, you don't want to be the best kept secret in your industry.
Right.
And I think that is so, so important. And yet it's such a vulnerable thing to ask. And at the same time, I get it. If we're
Yeah.
in business, we need to be asking and letting people know. I love to just simply say, just letting people know that you're available so people can then decide if they want
Right.
to buy in or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
Well, as we wrap up, Esther, is there a question that I haven't asked you that you want me to ask?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. I I have I thought of a story when, because you sent me some stuff to prepare, and I thought of a story of a time when I was afraid to speak up, but I did it anyway. And I could share that if you want.
Yes, please
Okay.
do.
Because it's not in a business context. It's in the context of being part of my church leadership team. And so every year for a while in our church leadership team, we would go on a retreat, and we would go and do some planning and some preparing for the coming year and things like that. And so my husband being on staff, I would often go on these retreats, and we would sit in this meeting, and there would often be, a lot of men, but a few women that were there too. And it was a conversation about what could we change? What could we do differently? Where are the weak points that we need to change in the church and things like that? And I always had ideas. I always have, like, my Enneagram type is type 1, and I'm always looking at how can we improve things? How can things be better? We can never get it perfect. We always can make it better. And so I always have ideas on how things could improve. And I thought, I was sitting there and I had this thing that I wanted to share. And I was just so nervous to share it. I was so nervous to speak up because I hadn't really ever, even though I was kind of there by default, right? I wasn't there because I had a particular role in the church. I was just the wife of the youth pastor. And I finally just got the courage to speak up and share my ideas. And like everybody agreed with me. And they were like, yes, we need to do that. We need to make these changes. And I
Wow.
was like, oh my word. But my brain works differently than other people's. We all have different ways of seeing things. And I was holding back because I thought that, I don't know what I thought. I probably thought people would disagree or they would think it was a
Mhm.
dumb idea or whatever. But I'm so glad that I spoke up in that meeting. And then that did give me the courage to speak up and continue to share my ideas moving forward. And we've been able to make a lot of the changes that I had as ideas, and I'm still an active part of the team, and I'm still able to bring a different perspective than some of the other team members. And so yeah, I thought, that's an example of a time when maybe I didn't want to say it because I didn't know how it was going to be responded to, but I'm so glad I did. And that is one
Yeah.
of the times when I started to recognize, oh, I do have value to offer. Even if I'm not a paid staff member, I can still bring something unique to this team.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that because it's so true. You never know. I mean, we can't control the outcome, but in that case, obviously, that really showed you that wow, this
Yeah.
this did make a difference.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what have you got coming up, Esther? How can we promote you? What
Mm.
do you want to ask people for as far as business and any other anywhere we can reach you?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, best place to reach me is my website, estherlittlefield.com. There is basically all the things that I have to offer are going to be on that site. I do have two podcasts. So if somebody wants to hop over and listen to one of them, I have the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. And Karen, you're going to be a guest on that show. And then I also have the Christian Woman Business Podcast. So if you are building an online business, that is a great place to connect and get some of my strategies, some of my insights there. And if you are someone who is looking at starting your own business or just kind of contemplating that idea, I have a free ideal life and biz guide on my website that you can grab. And that kind of helps you to start dreaming about what it would look like to have a business of your own and how that can fit into your ideal life.
Love it. Well, I'm so grateful for you, Esther. Thanks for being here and thanks for the difference that you're making in the world and in my life as well.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.